Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Music Podcast once again, where today I have a special guest sitting in with me, Mr. Marcus Nand. Marcus is a singer, songwriter. Here we go. Deep breath, producer, engineer, world-class guitar player, of course. Marcus has performed and appeared on recordings with such iconic artists as Rod Stewart, Neal Schon, Tony Levin, Steve Stevens, the legendary Diego Cigala. Not too many people can say that, and so many more. Marcus is currently performing with White Lion singer Mike Tramp on his Songs of White Lion tour. And he has also released a couple singles from a brand new upcoming full-length solo record. That album is called The Traveler. It comes out August 2nd on Cleopatra Records. Marcus, it is a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure to be here, Scott. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks for checking out the music, and thanks for having me here.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is an absolute pleasure. You're one of the most rounded players I think I've ever heard. And I think I want to start from the beginning with you because I think your journey, your musical journey, your life journey has a lot to do with the way you play and the music you make. Born in England, mixed parents. You have an English father.
English mother.
English mother, Indian father.
Yep.
You spent your younger years in Spain. Later
Correct.
moved to L.A. Rock and roll in L.A.
Yep.
Flamenco in Spain, and I detect in composition, it's very classically based. There's movements to what you do. It's in overall composition, in the song composition. There's so much that you do. It's so diverse. Tell me a little bit about your journey and, musically, where you learned to do all of this stuff.
Well, as you said, I very much agree with that. Everybody's sort of life story and where they've been, and it has a lot to do with how they end up playing, the influences we pick up along the way. And that goes for music in general, I think. When you study, and I've always said this, that's why I really like a lot of world music stuff, because you're sort of studying, the movement of people around the planet and how things mixed and matched and influences were taken on board by all kinds of players, all kinds of styles gathered, things from other styles and other cultures. And that's sort of
Right.
what I think has happened to me and everybody that's played and moved around a little bit. And especially if you take an interest in different styles and different cultures, it really, and you're fortunate enough to have been to, in any of these places, that really comes out and you're playing. And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, yeah, and even outside of music, I've been outside
Right.
of my backyard. My daughter was just in Africa, and
David.
she was able to grasp that culture and hear some of that music too when she was there. It's a different world. There
Yeah.
are many different worlds within our beautiful Earth. So
Yep.
it's great that we get that product from you and your journey because we really get to experience it, especially in your solo work. Tell me about The Traveler. How would you describe the songs on there? I have my own view and the way I hear it. How would you describe the songs on this record?
Well, it's definitely a very guitar focused musical album, in my opinion, and I wanted it to be that way, but I also didn't want to lag behind on any of the other areas. I really wanted to have a strong vocal record and a strong, songwriting album and a strong production on it. So I really used the guitars in a way that would more create more than flashy or anything like that. It's more of an atmosphere creating tool to where it supports what the song's saying, and I always try and include a little bit of like an escapist sort of thing in there, so it's sort of hopefully take somebody somewhere on a journey,
Yep.
um, so I really try to do that and have the atmosphere of the guitars support the song. I spent a lot of time on the vocals because I wanted it to be a good vocal record. Um, Painful process.
Well, that's one of and you know, when I say most rounded players, I mean vocalists too. There's not a lot that you don't do. You know, and you know, I think of you as a guitar player, and I think of you as a very rounded guitar player with the flamenco influence, especially. You know, and you're doing the Vito Bratta parts and the White Lion stuff, which is, you know, on its way to shredding. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of things that you do with the guitar. So when I come into a solo record from you, I don't expect to hear a great vocal record, which
Right.
this is, and it really, really is. You know, I listened to Time and Tide, Wait for No Man,
Okay, great.
and I hear a, like you say, very atmospheric. There's a lot of breathing room in it. It's very, it reminds me, I would describe it as Seal meets flamenco.
That's
With
a lot of people have described it like that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that, you know, it's a lot of breathing room. It's a big air, and it's large in that way. This record seems a little tighter to me. It's a little more on a classic rock vibe.
Yeah.
Not as much flamenco influence in it. Was
Right.
that intentional?
It was intentional. I wanted to do something that hit a little harder. There was a little bit more rock, and there are influences in the of flamenco, like the title track, "The Traveler." That rhythm is it comes directly from a flamenco style called bulerías, which is in 12/8,
Okay.
and so that's where that came from.
Yeah, and there's a small
But,
acoustic part in there too that, you
oh
know,
yeah,
is
yeah, exactly. And then
directly a flamenco style. Yeah.
yeah, and then Steve Stevens plays some nylon string. He did that last fast line. That's him playing that. So, and he's a
Okay.
great nylon string player too. So I wanted it to be a little bit more focused in Time and Tide. There's a lot of different stuff,
Mhm.
and it was a collection of songs that I had over a long period of time that I wanted to put on a record, and obviously, over a period of time, things, the way you write and the styles you're doing at a particular time change. So that's why it's quite, there's a lot of different stuff on there. But this, I wanted to make more of a focused rock record, and I thought it was a good time to do that because playing with Mike and playing all Vito stuff and all the White Lion stuff. It really I really wanted to sort of focus on something that audience would enjoy. So that's yeah. So I did. That's what I did.
Yeah. Oh, and they will enjoy it. This is
I hope.
a great record. Gypsy Song, of course. You know, speaking of Mike and Steve Stevens, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
We have a guest vocal from Mike on Gypsy Song.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a beautiful acoustic electric guitar song. There's no drum in it, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
just a campfire kind of song. That's just harmony vocal. You sing together. It's a beautiful thing.
Well,
Uh, it's really, really a special standout kind of highlight piece. You know, like you say, it moves. It's a little bit different. There's a few different things. Great piece.
right.
Guests on the record. You say Steve Stevens on the record. Mike Tramp's on the record.
Yeah.
Carmine Rojas, of course.
Carmine Rojas is
Just
a
oh,
a big
what a
part of my musical history. He's
what a monster.
yeah, he's a phenomenal bassman, but not only that, he's a great arranger and he's a great writer and producer. He's really brilliant at that stuff. So I often, if you look at any of the stuff I've done, he's always been quite a big part of all of it. Since the very beginning. And I remember him and I were this was like in the late '90s. We coincided in a local flamenco thing in LA. They had a really great cult following, and it was called Azul. And I was like the third guitar player or something. And I had these songs, and I went to Carmine. I said, "Hey, look, man, I've got these songs. What do you think? Do you think we should, what do you think of these songs?" I said, "But we need a singer." He goes, no, we don't use. You're going to sing them. I said, well, I'm not a singer. And he said, yeah, no, you have to sing these songs. You know, and so he really encouraged me from the very beginning and to you know, to really work on vocals and stuff. So yeah, he's definitely a big part of a lot of the things I do. And we
Man.
sit in the studio here together. We arrange a lot of stuff together, and you
Yeah,
know,
I wanted to ask you that too. I see that you produced the album. Now, producing, especially a solo album, uh, your own. I'm a photographer. I take pictures. I look at them on the screen. I look at them for hours on the screen. I go away. I come back the next day and I say, "What the hell is that?"
yeah,
It's like, what was I looking at? So it's good. For me, in that way, it's good to have a set of eyes that comes in from behind me and says, "No, that's way dark." Or
yeah.
I think it's the same for a musician, right? You're so close to it. Is it good to have that extra set of ears? Does it help in your production of the album?
It always does. It always does. Luckily, when we do these type of recordings now, we're at home, right? So
Right.
if you're lucky and you don't have to cram it all into a period of time, then that you do have the luxury of getting away from it without it costing you anything, coming back to it a few days later, and so that helps in that way. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's always great to have another thing because we can sit and question, and somebody else can come in and just say, you know what, that's good, that ain't.
Right.
And then your mind's made up. Then you don't question again, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, there are things that you do intentionally, that somebody else may not be on board with.
Yeah.
But it is always good. I love to
Really
hear
good.
that there's somebody
I,
else looking at it.
I do like to really sit and internalize this stuff because sometimes with leads and stuff, you know, a lot of people work like this. You know, it starts out as an improvisation and then gathers some structure along the way, and maybe there's a few great parts that you use, and then you can drop in another part that makes the other ones make sense, or you can comp from 4 or 5 takes or whatever. That's a lot of people work that way.
Right.
So I do like to do what Van Halen used to do, and learn that stuff and really sort of internalize it, and so after the sort of improvisation is done, I do take a long time to learn what's there, and really make it sound like it's fluid when it's played. So it sounds like something that I've been playing for a while.
Yeah.
Some people don't do that. Some people like the energy of the first thing. I mean, it does depend. There can be a first energy, first take energy that you
Yeah.
need.
I
So
don't.
yeah,
That's an interesting take, because that's the record feels comfortable to me, and I think that's really what because I love raw energy. I'm a hard rock guy,
right.
core, um, but like when I listen to a record like this, I want it to be comfortable, and
Yeah.
it is.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, and I wanted it to be comfortable. I didn't want it to be too safe. I still wanted to make it sound like a band. And I believe it does sound like a band playing. Because first of all, there's a lot of great players on there, but I wanted to make it sound like it was a band, not a bunch of sessions and overdubs and stuff.
That totally does. It totally does. And that's where I got that classic rock vibe from it a little more than Time and Tide,
Yeah,
because it
exactly.
does have a band feel.
Yes.
Time and Tide, not as much.
It sounds like a
I mean,
studio album. It's a little sterile. Yeah,
I-
I agree. And I didn't realize that at the time, but because as you say, you get close to stuff.
right.
But I do now. I listen back and I go, okay, yeah, I see. That's a little
But
sterile.
but I love that too,
Yeah,
because it's a little more of a like on the adult contemporary side
right,
rather than the rock
right.
side. So that in that world, it works. It works for me for
Yeah,
sure.
I
Um,
love that record too. Yeah, that was a big experience, a big experience in production for me. It was the first record that I of my own that I entirely produced.
okay.
I do rely on I do have a great relationship with the engineer who mixes it. His name is Tony Phillips. So when we put I do sort of go back and forth with him when we're trying to create something, and he knows what I like and knows what I'm trying to capture, so he does it with that in mind. So the way it sounds obviously has to be put together a certain way, but the way it sounds, he has a lot to do with that. He's a great mixer, so
Well,
it's good you got to have the right people to do the right
I
things.
was gonna say it's a team, it's a
Yeah,
chemistry, it's gelling together.
yeah.
It's great. And you can feel that as a listener. I can. I put it on. I know when everything's in the groove, and it's hard to it's hard to fool the listener really. The successful stuff, the
It
stuff
is,
that
and you should never try and fool the listener. You'll be smelled out and
yeah.
instantly. You should never. I don't think you should try and pander or fool. I think it's got to be authentic, and it's got to be what you feel is the best thing you can put forward.
Yeah, this is great. Do We Bleed?
Yeah,
Another standout song for me. Because of its emotion and atmosphere, as well as its worldly humane message. Um, is there a song that means a little bit more to you on this record than the others? Because that sounds very passionate. It's from the core. That song in particular
yeah.
hit me like that. Is that one for you that is a
That
little
is one
closer
for
to
me.
your
That's
heart?
a special song for me. Yeah, because one, it's different than the other ones. I think it still works among everything. It's different, and I love when things remind me of some of my heroes, and that key, that's Jamie Mahobrak playing Real Moog on that. Um, and that reminds me of Floyd, and it just puts me in that atmosphere. And I think the lyrics they could have been a little bit more sophisticated, but I like the honest, simple way that's put forth, and I think the delivery, the vocal is okay, and so I like that the way it works. Drummer on that is Jerry Marotta, who also was
Oh,
Peter Gabriel's drummer for. So
oh,
it's a special playing on that track,
wow.
and
Jerry
that's Carmine on bass as well.
Jerry Marotta and Carmine Rojas.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
Wow. That's the price of admission right there.
He's such an unorthodox drummer. If you notice, it's a very unorthodox approach that he does. A very, he's known for that. So
He's
definitely,
genius,
yeah.
absolute genius, Jerry Morano. Yeah, if you're at all familiar, at least in the jazz world, the fusion world, too, it's Jerry Morata. Wow,
He recorded with Tears for Fears. He recorded with Tears for
so
Fears.
many.
It's some great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so many. Wow, this is an all star band lineup. It's so great.
Yeah.
Um, I notice a familiar name attached to a long way down. I
Ah,
think it's attached to a beautiful thing. Uh,
yes.
Jeff Paris.
Yes.
I have a record here that I bought years ago. Is this the same Jeff Paris?
That's the same Jeff Paris. Yes.
Wow, unbelievable.
Jeff is a phenomenal writer. We have a really good writing relationship, and he gets we get each other. We really get each other, and I love his writing. He's written for a lot of people.
Yeah,
So whenever I run into something where I think his expertise would take the song, and he's got two or three co-writes on Time and Tide as well. Um, he's always a go-to. I can whenever I feel like a song could move more in that direction, he's the guy I normally do it with.
it's kind of funny. I bought that record at some kind of flea market or something, but it had Vixen songs on it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He
Yeah,
wrote, One Night Alone, and he wrote a
yeah,
few of the Vixen songs, Crying,
he
I
did,
think,
yeah.
and those are on that record. But I picked it up. Matt Sorum is the drummer. That's how I knew Matt Sorum. So when when Matt joined up with Guns N' Roses, I'm like, oh, that's Jeff Paris's drummer.
Oh, okay. See, I
You
didn't
know,
know that
and
on that.
everybody's like, who? What? Because he
Yeah,
was with the Cult before that too.
right.
Um, but I know him as Jeff Paris's drummer. So
I didn't know he was on that record. I had no idea.
yeah,
But I know Jeff had some success with that in England and Europe. I think in
Yeah,
Holland he did okay with that, but yeah, he's a fantastic writer, and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and it's it's really something. A lot of people on that record actually, producers and things like that. So yeah, it was great to see the Jeff Paris name, for sure. Very cool. Now the cover art is really striking.
yeah.
Um, did you have any input on the art direction?
Oh, I did. We did. I had a lot of input on the direction, but this was that's interesting because I was talking to the Brian Pereira, the head of the label, and we were talking about art and stuff, and I wasn't really well versed in AI at that point, and this is only a few months ago. Um, so he said, "Well, what about this?" And he kept on sending me these ideas, and I'm like, "How are you doing this, man?" I mean, I knew about AI, but I didn't know it could get so, you
Yeah,
know, detailed in the visuals art stuff.
right.
So between the two of us, yeah, we went back and forth a little bit and came up with that. And I thought it was a really good representation. I thought it reminded me of those covers that we used to stir at when we were kids, and had a lot going on that captured your interest. I wonder what's going on in that window right there. That's
Right.
a
Yep. You
so
know
that
what?
was
It's weird. It reminded me of Maiden's "Somewhere in Time" record.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
With the
Interesting.
Zen, because you have the Eddie standing there, but there's a whole bunch of little, writings on the wall and things like
Yeah,
that. I
yeah.
found myself looking at that, doing the same thing, like you said,
Good.
trying to find all the little details and, that figure in the middle. Really, yeah, it's profound, actually. It's got with the Traveler title, it really is, it's very representative of,
Yeah.
that, all of that.
I
Uh,
thought it fit really well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's very cool.
And
Now,
then the covers for the singles, it's all done. I did it all with AI and you know, did the text to picture description and then went back and forth a little bit and then asked to add a little humor here, add a little this and that. And surprisingly, it came up with some interesting,
yeah,
suggestions. And so I did that. I'm
it's
guilty of that.
as a photographer, every my world is a little bit scared of it. I don't know. It's kind of like streaming is for music. Yeah, it's going to put a dent in things. You're not going to sell records anymore. But there's an adaptation to it, I think.
I
Uh,
think so too.
the streaming can be very advantageous for a musician as well if it's
Well,
done
somebody in my position where I don't have a catalog, it's a great thing for me. I mean, social media and streaming for me personally is fantastic because if I gather a handful of new listeners every few days, I mean that's quite a big deal, and to do that without streaming would be very difficult for me.
right.
So, but I understand if you have a catalog. Well, I also depends if you have a catalog that appeals to people who stream because not everybody does,
Right.
um, then you're in the money. You
Yeah.
really are. I know a lot of artists that are making way more money than they would be making if there was no streaming.
Right. Well, I thought about that and I'm like, what is it, a quarter of a penny per play or something? And I'm thinking to myself, I paid, $12 or something for a CD. And a lot of my CDs I've listened to hundreds of thousands of
Yeah, yeah,
times.
right.
And if they got a quarter of a penny for every time I played a song, they would have gotten a lot more than $12.
Oh, right, right.
I mean, your Taylor Swifts and things like that of the world, I think they're making more on a quarter of a penny per play than they are on a 12 or $15 CD.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I don't. It's a big mystery of how that works, but I think obviously people like Taylor Swift, they don't they're not subject to the same sort of calculations as the rest. I think they make special deals just like a label or stuff because they also bring listeners to the platform for other music, right? So I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not condoning this or I don't think it's great or anything, but I understand the logic behind it, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really great is Marcus Nand will fall into a random playlist of a related artist. Uh,
Right, right.
when somebody is listening to, Seal or Steve Vai or Marcus Nand's going to come in after that album's done playing. That's a pretty cool
Fingers
thing.
crossed.
That's a pretty cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're doing the White Lion songs
Yes.
tour. That's got to be a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
You know, Vito, there's so many that you're under the microscope when you take that gig. Of course, you're
Yeah.
filling big shoes, and of course, you're more than capable. But he's considered, on that Eddie Van Halen echelon
Yeah.
of players. How do what's the, when you take that gig, that is there a mental preparation for that? Do you play those parts perfectly as in Vito's style, or do you play them in Marcus Nand's style?
All right. Well, the I play the notes that, or at least most of the notes that he because we changed the keys, so there's some adaptation we have to do.
Right.
Um, so I play the notes, but just whenever anybody else plays the same notes as somebody else, it sounds different, right? So I could never just completely sound like him. Or like there's a lot of stuff technically that he does that it's just like incredible. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah.
But even if I did it technically, the same, it would sound different. So what I've tried to do is really recreate this stuff and be faithful to the notes that he's playing. My sound's a little different too. I like because I play a strat. It's a little more scrappy sounding. It's like it's got some Rory Gallagher in there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I really like that. And I think that makes it a little different too. It's not as precise as he is, for better or for worse.
Right.
My way of justifying my sloppiness.
No, it's raw, I think is a good word.
I think raw. Yeah, I think raw.
Especially for Rory. That's as raw as he gets. So yeah, that's I think that's what people would love to hear. We want the notes, but we'd love it raw and scrappy.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
And where it's an advantage, where it where it helps whoever was going to be doing that guitar, Vito stuff. The songs themselves are so strong, and they meant a lot to people, and they mean a lot to people now because it's been a long time since they've heard them live in that way. So, um, people come to the show or hear the album. The songs meant so much to them that I think that sweeps them into feeling good about what they're listening to.
Yeah.
So when a guitar solo happens or some of the guitar parts happen, even though you could say that they don't sound exactly like Vito, because I'm playing the parts, it hits them in the right way and they're forgiving about it. I think
Yeah.
or accepting or whatever that they enjoy it.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that because
Yeah.
in a world of haters, they're all out there. Some people.
Luckily, music and good songs take the hater out of people. So
It's a beautiful thing. It really is. Now, with this band, you have Mike and yourself. You have Jerry Best.
yeah,
I'm thinking Freak of Nature.
right.
This is pretty close. Um, you're playing songs of White Lion. Are you writing? Is there,
Haven't been writing at the moment. We haven't been writing. No, no.
has that
This
been a discussion?
No, it's not a discussion. This is a very focused, specific thing we're doing. There's no way that we're going to do anything under that name. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing anything under that name
Right.
because and Mike wouldn't either. And it's not legally it's not right. And there's a lot of reasons why.
Sure.
A lot of reasons why, right? So no, we definitely won't be putting any new music out under that name. That's a
Right.
specific thing.
Would you consider another name? Writing together
Oh,
as
absolutely, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's good. But it
definitely.
hasn't happened.
No, not yet. We've been so focused in trying to get this done, and we talked about doing before we did these two records. We talked about doing a project that was fresh with no real sort of hard rock direction, just something that anything musical that we like, maybe a little progressive. Maybe we talked about it. Maybe we'll do it one of these days. I'd love
Yeah,
to, you know.
yeah. We'd
Yeah.
love you to too.
It
That
would be
would be
interesting.
great.
Yeah, yeah.
It would be cool. You have an Indian vocal influence on the Time and Tide record. And it's enticing to me. And I wanted to discuss that with you. I know it's the last record, but
No, that's good. I love talking about it.
Misa Kara?
Mesa Cara. Yes,
Misa
Mesa Cara.
Kara.
Yeah, Arabic
Uh,
vocal.
oh,
Yes.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Just extraordinary.
Incredible.
Do you when you were making this record, you wanted to stay more on the rock side of things. Do you see yourself going back and doing more of the world music type of influence?
Definitely, definitely, because it sometimes it just inevitably comes out. So I would definitely I love that stuff. I love getting different cultural vocalists on there. There's a flamenco singer on there too, a gypsy on that
Yeah,
record that's
yeah,
incredible. So yeah, absolutely. I don't see why you shouldn't do that. I don't see why you shouldn't incorporate things that aren't normally incorporated in rock
yeah.
and you know.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, okay, good.
That's why I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah,
I love that. I absolutely, and like you say, I'm a hard rock guy at the core. It's what I grew up with. It's what I'm most knowledgeable of, I think. Uh,
yeah.
but I love jazz. I love world music. I love funk.
Cool.
And to hear that and to hear you do things like that is it's that's special, because we're getting a different view of what you do, and you do it so well. They're
Well,
great
thank you.
great
I
songs.
think it was important on this record, though. I think it was important to just establish, establish this. Um, Not many people know Time and Tide. More people are going to know the Traveler even now that it's only been out a few. It's not even out yet, but it's been talked about for a little while.
Right.
So I'm feeling that this is a good way to establish myself as a solo artist, and then I can, I was planning on re-releasing Time and Tide, and also, now I can start incorporating some other things
Yeah.
and be a little
Yeah.
bit more, you know,
Yeah.
wide
Yeah.
reaching.
It's fantastic. I'm so looking forward to what the future holds. In the spirit of the traveler, I'll leave you with a kind of a fun question. You could leave on a plane and leave your appointments and your responsibilities and all that behind, because you're a very worldly person. Growing up in England and Spain and LA, and you're a touring musician. If you could go anywhere in the world, and let me tell you, this question comes from a place where I had my 6-year-old daughter and her cousin who was the same age in the car. We were passing by the airport, and I asked them. I said, "Hey, if we could get out of the car and go anywhere on a plane right now, where would you want to go?" And of course, my daughter's like, "Florida, because Disney World's there." And of course, her cousin, the grumpy one, says, "I just want to go home." Uh, she didn't want to go anywhere.
Right,
But I thought it was an interesting dynamic. So as an adult, I thought to myself, where would I want to go?
right.
And I think that's an interesting thing, because incorporating the music and incorporating personal things, because what is home to you? Is it England? So you could go anywhere. You get off at the airport, you go anywhere you want. Where would you want to go?
Oh, that's a good question. A very good question. To get back to something you just said though, before I go there,
Yeah.
is home for me. It really is the States now. I don't feel I feel like a foreigner when I'm in England, right? And even my sister lives in London. I mean, in Brighton. I go back, you know, not as often as I go to Spain because my parents are in Spain. So I go back to Spain a
Okay.
lot. In Spain, I feel like I'm more, I don't feel Spanish, but I feel like I'm from Spain because I grew up there and they were very formative years.
Uh,
So, but I feel very comfortable and at home in LA. You know, that, so where would I go if I could have anywhere to go? I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I've never been to Tokyo. Japan is somewhere I really want to experience that culture and just go and spend some time. I would love to travel around Japan. I think that would be the answer for me.
Yeah, yeah, and I've done interviews with Frankie Banali, the great Frankie Banali,
Yeah,
on now, but he always spoke so highly of the Japanese, and I mean, he just praised the land, the people,
sure.
everything, and he really he made it enticing for me. I thought, wow, that's a place that I think I'd love to go as well, for sure.
Yeah, I love well, at least the LA version of Japanese food.
Right.
I don't know how different it is, right? But I just love just Tokyo seems so intense and I'd love to travel there. Hopefully we get to do some shows there. I
Yeah.
know Mike's we're talking about it. It's got to be logistically,
Right. Touring
um,
is rough. That's a lot of fans don't realize exactly, all those little things that, all the, logistics of touring. Uh,
yeah,
Very, very difficult, especially overseas like that, with, visas and everything else. And
yeah,
wow, yeah,
yeah. And obviously, it has to work out cost wise and
sure.
everything costs money to do it. And
Yep, sure does. So, people can go to marcusnand.com.
yes,
There's a link to the Cleopatra Records website
yes,
there where they can buy the record. There's also tour dates there where you can buy tickets, see where Marcus is going to be, and go see it, man. It's fantastic, Marcus. This has been great, man. I
it's been great,
appreciate it.
Scott. And thank you for doing the research and taking an interest in my music. It's a real pleasure to talk music with you.
It is an absolute thrill and an honor to have you on and have your music in my life. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. That means a lot, Scott. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And I'll see you at the Arcada Theater.
I'll see you at the Arcada, whatever date that may be.
Right, right. All right, Marcus. Take care. Have a
Okay,
great
all
day.
the best to you.
All right, you
Cheers.
too. Bye bye.
Bye.